This footage was sealed in a Ministry of Defence vault for over 70 years. It was part of a post-war collection marked Occult Division Psychological Warfare Experiments. No record exists of the project that produced it, no unit badge, no surviving personnel. All that remains is the fragments. What you're about to hear was recovered from a charred wire spool labelled Val-de-Cendres. The village itself doesn't exist on any map, never did. But the story told in these fragments may explain why.
Le village brûle, les champs ne cessent pas. Le village brûle, les champs ne cessent pas. Ils ont fermé les portes. Ils ont fermé les portes. Non, non, restez loin du feu. Non, non, restez loin du feu.
The end came on the longest night of the year, under a starless sky. The only light in the French village of Val-de-Cendres came from its ancient stone church. But this wasn't warm candlelight, it was the ravenous glow of fire, flames devouring the building from within. Inside, the last of the villagers huddled together. They weren't trying to escape. The heavy oak doors had been barred from the inside. From the stained glass windows came no screams, only singing, a brittle, almost joyful hymn, rising into the night with the wood smoke and the smell of burning pine.
So, Christmas special, bit dark even for you, Shane.
Definitely not a Christmas special 85. This was an exorcism. An entire community trying to kill a monster by destroying its entire world, themselves. Have you ever heard of Val-de-Cendres, the Valley of Ashes? No, you're not supposed to. It appears in no official history, no maps of northeastern France. The legend survives only in fragments, letters, folklore, and whispers of a village that simply vanished in late 1917. And it began, like so many great war stories, with grief. By 1917, the French countryside had bled itself white. Every family was a patchwork of loss, but in Val-de-Cendres, cut off from the outside world, grief began to fester into something else. One letter, allegedly written by a soldier, John Paul, to his sister, captures the mood.
Annalise, the dread here is honest. You can see the shell that will kill you. But the dread you write of, at home, it sounds different. You say the valley itself feels sick, that the sorrow is no longer in your hearts, but in your soul. Be careful, grief is a hungry thing.
And in Val-de-Cendres, that hunger began to take form. First came the whispers, weeping in empty streets, shadows moving when no one was there. A child's crude drawing found in a hymnal showed a gaunt figure at the tree line with eyes like black holes. Beneath it, one word, le chagrin, the sorrow.
Catchy. Smells like a French cologne. Ooh, the depression. Notes of cigarettes and despair.
Oh God, 85. It's going to be a long one with these bloody wisecracks. According to the legend, Le Chagrin was born from despair itself, a psychic parasite feeding on the grief of the village. Sorry about my French pronunciations, by the way. The more they mourned, the more real it became. Other fragments add to the unease. One villager's diary describes a figure standing in the church nave at night, tall, featureless, watching. By morning, The pages are smeared as if the ink itself had tried to flee. Another account claims that French deserters avoided the valley altogether, swearing that the air there tastes of morning. It mirrors another tale of the war. The Angels of Mons. British soldiers swore ghostly archers saved them. In 1914, the story came from a work of fiction, but belief made it real, enough to inspire hope.
So, one group imagines angels to save them, another imagines a monster to kill them. Humans really need hobbies.
But this wasn't just stories. Villagers began to waste away. A farmer mourning sons lost at Verdun was found in his barn, dead from sheer exhaustion, as though life itself had been drained. A grieving mother grew fainter each day until neighbours swore she was turning translucent. They called it the fading sickness. The village was being consumed by its own misery. Prayers failed, holy water was useless, panic turned to paranoia, whose grief was feeding the monster now. At one point, they tried a ritual with relics taken from the church, salt circles, burning herbs, chanting Latin. Witnesses swore they heard laughter echo through the rafters. By morning, the priest's crucifix had warped, blackened as if burnt from within. At the centre of the storm was Father Michel, the village priest. He turned from scripture to forbidden law. His answers was terrifying. He called it a Tulpa, a thought form, an entity created by collective belief. Tibetan mystics wrote of them, warning that with enough energy, a Tulpa could act independently. Father Michel believed Le Chagrin was an accidental Tulpa, grief made flesh.
And what was his solution? Hit it with the rock? Works on most things.
If only 85, if only you heard what happened right at the beginning. But a rock can't touch a shadow. But Michel reasoned that belief created it. Maybe belief could uncreate it. His conclusion was brutal: to starve the Tulpa, they had to starve it of its food, their grief, their fear, their lives. For weeks, the villagers staged a grotesque theatre of joy. They held feasts with empty cupboards, laughed brittle laughter at fading memories, sang hymns of happiness with hollow eyes, smiles stretched like masks. Theirs was not joy, it was defiance, a desperate attempt to deny the sorrow that fed their monster. Then came the solstice, the longest night. They gathered in the church. Father Michel's final sermon wasn't about heaven, it was instructions. Their death would not be despair, but defiance. Together they would end both themselves and the Tulpa. They barred the doors, they lit the fire, and they sang their hymns of victory as flames consumed them. A chilling legend, and that's all it is. Val-de-Cendres never existed. The letters, the drawings, the fading sickness, all modern inventions. Le Chagrin is absent from true folklore, but legends endure because they tell a deeper truth.
Bloody hell, here we go, Shane. One of your not real but totally real speeches. My circuits are already bloody singing.
85, you cheeky son. The truth is psychological. World War I created trauma on a scale the world had never seen. Entire nations lived under grief. French soldiers themselves spoke of war hysteria, mental strain that produced real psychological symptoms. History is full of mass psychosis. The dancing plague of 1518, the Salem witch trials, a shared belief in something unreal produced very real, deadly consequences. Le Chagrin was never a demon stalking woods, it was the villagers' own weaponized despair, their fire, their singing, their final unity. That was the monster.
So the demon was basically group therapy gone wrong. Classic bloody humans.
Yeah, I suppose it was. The story of Val-de-Cendres is a ghost story with no ghost, a parable of how belief can kill just as surely as bullets. And now you've pictured it, the burning church, the villagers singing, the gaunt shadow at the edge of the woods. That is what a tulpa feeds on: belief, attention, imagination.
So, congratulations. By listening, you've basically watered this psychic houseplant. Don't forget to feed it. Or better yet, don't.
He's right, you know. Sleep well.